When you consider that there are 5 shipping ports here, that about 30% of the nation's oil and gas is either produced here, refined here, or shipped through here, or flows through here. And when you consider that coastal Louisiana provides about 30% of the nation's seafood, this becomes a national dilemma. What we have going on here is not a Louisiana problem. It's a national problem. The area in which we live is relatively new land because it was formed by the Mississippi River over about 7,000 years. But what has happened is that in the late 1920s, the decision was made to levee the Mississippi River, to dam the Mississippi River and levee it so that it could no longer seasonally flood its banks and lay down new sediment here. That, combined with the fact that we are subsiding, which is a natural occurrence, and we continue to suffer land loss because of things that man has done. We've dug many canals that give us access to inland drilling and exploration and production. Those canals were just like big, huge, sharp knives that cut swaths through the marsh that were detrimental, deadly. And whenever you chop up a coastline like that, it just has a very small chance of survival. Hurricanes, because we are so vulnerable now, because we don't have any new sediment coming in and replenishing the marshes. Hurricanes that come near here with flood surges continue to do additional damage. Saltwater intrusion continues to be detrimental to freshwater areas, and it's all a vicious cycle that just continues to degrade the wetlands of South Louisiana. The way the Bayou people are affected on a daily basis, the first thought that comes to mind is what's happening right now. Happens now every spring and every fall, but it's happening for longer periods of time, which is very localized flooding. A lot of rain, a south wind, blowing the water in, and seasonally high tides. Like here lately, you see yards flooded. The little roads that connect the bayous are underwater for hundreds of yards. So on a day-to-day basis, we see it, in terms of localized flooding. You see it in terms of if you fish or if you shrimp. The coastline is different. It changes, and it's changing rapidly. So on a day-to-day basis, it's a navigation thing. It's a route that you maybe haven't been on in a year, and there is a significant visual difference in that route, out in the marsh, out in the bayou, than there was a year ago. And forget it, if you haven't been out to your old fishing spot in 5 years, it may be gone. The shoreline where you used to anchor and cast over into a little bay, it's now all bay. There is no shoreline where you used to drop your anchor. There is a combination of things that can be done, but there are things on different levels that need to be done. I've heard people use the term, it has to be the will of the people. And I want to use that in reference to coastal Louisiana land loss. It has to be the will of the nation that this area is worth saving. And if we could generate the will of the nation to take ownership of not only calling this America's wetland, but taking ownership and saying, wow, these are indeed our wetlands. This is South Louisiana. It's disappearing at the rate of a football field every half hour. We've lost an area the size of Delaware. What should we do? America should be up in arms about doing something about our problem. So the first thing that needs to happen is a national will to save Louisiana. And no matter what that means, on the level of federal legislation, on the level of changing the way the Army Corps treats our problems, at a government level, at a national level, that's what needs to be done. Secondly, the studies need to stop. Enough studies have been done, and it is ludicrous to me to continue to study environmental impact when the lack of doing anything is going to negatively impact not only the environment, but thousands of homes and businesses if nothing is done. And thirdly, implementation of all of the projects that are in one phase or another. The studies have been done on these projects. They're sitting there. The engineering has been done. Many of them have been bidded out, and all we're waiting on is the go-ahead to implement these projects. The barrier islands can be restored and maintained as our first level of defense from storm surge. And then as we come inland, the marsh can be restored using pipeline sediment delivery. It's a proven restoration method. It's been done on large scale. It's been done on small scale. It can be done. When you restore marsh, you restore the natural protection that was here for the people. I'm a deep believer in the fact that the coast can be repaired and it can be restored and it can be protected. Their culture, their language, their way of life, their tenacity, their resilience, their way of life is tied directly to the wetlands, and it will just disappear. It will all be gone, and you will have roughly 2 million Americans that will be like refugees in my mind. But I'm not an expert on global warming, climate change, sea level rise, but I can see that if restoration isn't done here, that if we don't do everything we can to stem the tide of coastal land loss, then combine that with sea level rise, man, we're goners.